Okay, the reading from Emmett Fox is The Kafir Didn't Know. About the middle of the last century, a traveler was journeying along through what was then a remote part of South Africa. One day, while smoking his pipe outside the hut in a native village, he noticed a group of little naked children playing what was evidently a native version of the time-honored game of marbles. He watched the game idly for a while, and then something about the rough stones caught his attention. They were quite small pebbles, dull, but here his pulse began to steeplechase. He spoke to the children's father with studied carelessness, and the Kafir said, "Oh yes, the children like these little stones. They have some more in the hut." And he brought forth a small basket containing several more. Repressing his excitement, the traveler took out a large plug of tobacco worth perhaps 20 or 30 cents in our money and said, "I would like to take the stones home for my children. I will give you this tobacco for them. Are you willing?" The Kafir laughed and said, "I am robbing you, but if you insist, all right." And the bargain was sealed, which not only enriched the stranger, but led in time to the great discovery of the South African diamond fields. The fate of the Kafir is really the fate of most human beings. Man holds a fabulous treasure in his possession, the power of the spoken word with a capital W, and yet in most cases he does not know it. "The Lord shall open unto thee his good treasure, to bless all the work of thine hand." And that little bit of scriptures from Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 12.
So to carry it forward to the talk of fear of dragons, if the visitor had even told the father what he thought they were, the father would have laughed. It would be totally outside his comprehension. And had he told him what he envisioned down the road, the Kafir probably would have been quite frightened for all the change. And this is what we're going to talk about today, the fear of the dragon, the coming of change, of self-improvement, or of changes in our spiritual walk. Now, this can also be applied to your personal lives, but I'm not going to cover that much at all. You can infer it if you choose. So, the problem that the Kafir would have faced is one that we as humans will face at least some time, probably many times, during this existence, our existence on earth. And we'll tend to experience it during everyday events. And if we have any interest at all in coming closer to God, we most assuredly will experience it during our spiritual travels and explorations. As I was thinking on this topic, I was reminded of an agony column I read just within this week. A woman wrote in and, paraphrasing, spoke that after having several disappointing experiences in romance and love, she decided she just wouldn't have anything to do with it, and she has built a wonderful life for herself, successful career, owns her own home, busy, has lots of friends, is a wonderful aunt to the nieces and nephews. But every so often she would feel unease that she might be missing something. She also made the point that anything that didn't fit comfortably to her, she got rid of one way or another from her life. And that she regarded her home as her sanctuary. She wanted nothing in it that could possibly cause any discomfort. So was she missing a point of life? Well, the agony columnist gave a good answer, but one of the correspondents wrote something that fits here. Quote, "I believe being uncomfortable sometimes is an indicator that we are stretching and growing." Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with cartography, particularly ancient maps. But in the ancient maps, the cartographers, when they ran out of what they knew about land, they would write along the edges of their map, "Here there be dragon." For what was not known was frightening. So, thinking about this in the spiritual vein, I think it was the late Isaac Asimov at one point, or at least I believe it was he. I'm not absolutely positive. What would happen if a more advanced race from somewhere out of space appeared here? He noted that just to get here, this other life form would have to be using technologies very different from anything we had on Earth. And therefore, Asimov asserted, any Earth person encountering this visitor and this visitor's mode of transportation would be unable to comprehend what it was, how it all happened. And thus, he posited, the Earthling would be limited to calling the events, the visit, the unexplained how, a miracle. Or they would deny anything ever happened. And this is what we face as a risk as we seek to grow ourselves spiritually and morally. A researcher by the name of Lawrence Kohlberg, who specialized in exploring morality and moral development, buttresses this idea. In his studies, he developed a concept of 6 levels of moral development and how we respond to each level as we encounter them and as we go through the levels. And the overall concept reflects our choice of personal growth versus stagnation or no movement. And as a foundation for what we're talking about, I want to sort of go through the 6 levels, and I'm going to see about actually, let's see, where's chat? I'm going to send it by chat so you can look at them too.
It's way over here with the 1 on it.
Okay.
Okay.
There we, oops. Okay, so I'm going to send this in chat. Okay, so here's a quick rundown on Kohlberg's 6 levels of moral development. Number 1 is obedience and punishment orientation. In other words, how can I avoid punishment? Number 2 is self-interest. What's in it for me? Paying for a benefit. 3 is interpersonal accord and conformity. Social norms, the good boy, good girl attitude. Then there's 4, authority, social order, maintaining orientation, a sort of law and order morality. 5 is social contract orientation, if you will, my interpretation, committing to live within the community and help the community as a whole function and be safe and grow. And then 6 is universal ethical principles. Now, Kohlberg's key point, as it involves our choice to grow morally or spiritually, he acknowledged that it's difficult for us to see moral and spiritual reality, that we have difficulty comprehending the concepts of a stage that are more than one level beyond where we are. So, for instance, someone who's at level 2, what's in it for me, will find utterly incomprehensible the concepts of and value of level number 5, the value of maintaining social contacts or contracts. Richard Rohr has written about this too. And so now we sort of move into the spiritual side. Now, I'm going to say spirituality no doubt has these levels as well, and they may be identical. What Rohr says is a 3rd level person can't make sense of what someone on the 5th level is saying. It is meaningless. And he goes on to write, that's what we're up against when we preach the gospel. And bear in mind that Rohr is not a preacher of traditional conservative, I'm okay, you're going to hell, thank God, gospel. No, he preaches that God has sent the message of love to all civilizations, all of humankind, with different Jesuses bringing the message. So Kohlberg and Rohr both posit that most people are not beyond their first or second level, and thus the third level would be a stretch for them, or that maybe that's the highest that they're going to make. And it's not that they're bad-willed; they simply can't understand that there is a higher, more complex moral understanding, or if they are presented with it, it goes and they either deny it or they decide that it's heretical. Look at so many of the heretics through time, Jesus included, Baha'u'llah from the Baha'i, even Muhammad at first, they were all called heretics because they were seeking something at a different level than the rest of society. He goes on to say, the folks who are at first, second, third level are not necessarily ill-willed. They simply have no idea where the gospel, where its meaning, its true meaning, is coming from. And Rohr goes on to say, the gospel of Jesus, now this is the gospel that he preaches, not those who are using Jesus to whip you into line. The gospel of Jesus will always be a minority position, as will mystical Judaism, Islam, or Buddhism. So those of us who choose spiritual and moral growth will, when being presented with data from a higher level of reality, be faced with, how are we going to respond? Any new information, no matter how high up on the levels we are, will challenge us. And for many, it will be an experience of anxiety. Certainly ones on lower levels presented with the next leg up will experience anxiety, discord. I just recently read an interview with a woman who had been in a very conservative evangelical church. She said, we were taught that the highest role of women was to get married and have lots of babies. And when she started going to public school, in middle school, she found challenge. It did not fit. It was extremely uncomfortable. Wherever each of us is in our level, and by the way, I'm convinced that even when we hit level 6, there's still pieces of it. It's a logarithmic continuing up until we finally join Godhead. We will face challenges. Will we feel uncomfortable? Very possibly, if not probably. Because our comfort, and our comfort in our existing beliefs or in our existing existence, is being challenged. It's not likely any of us is going to say, oh, a new idea, and leap in and embrace it. Because these ideas are so fundamental to our being. So, in our spiritual walk, in our moral development, as we come across new callings, new challenges, new ideas, well, first of all, check their veracity. Because there are, of course, some teachers who are con men. I'm thinking of one in particular that someone in the neo-pagan field told me about, who uses his role as a shaman who will teach you the ways of the universe to get in the pants of every lady that he wants to bed. That's corruption. Know the difference between that and genuine calling of new information. So when we have new understandings presented to us that we probably are not grasping or having difficulty grasping, Don't bow to the fear or the discomfort. Be willing to move toward and into these new understandings, even though in the process there's likelihood that I, you, we will feel whelmed and that we will struggle to understand more than small parts of that whole level at first. And that's just fine. We will feel as if we're feeling our way in semi-darkness. That's the way it is. And it's the way it is even when we're talking about living here. You get a new job. No matter how well they indoctrinate you, train you, you're still going to be feeling like you are feeling your way in semi-darkness. For one reason or another, you move to a new town or city, you're going to be feeling your way through in semi-darkness. You have a new understanding of the divine, or what the divine is asking of you, or calling you. You will be feeling your way through in semi-darkness. Now, with faith, you can still feel that you're holding on to a hand while you're walking in the semi-darkness. But keep walking. Check with the divine as you walk, of course, so that you don't go astray. That's one of the values of meditation, of talking with a spiritual guide to help you. Not a guide who is trying to tell you what to believe, but who can help you check your own developing beliefs. And of course, as you walk into this semi-darkness, you will feel discomfort. You will be aware that you have lost, you have given up the certainty that you had in the previous level. Because now there's more, there's deeper, there's richer, there's closer to God. So, those of us I know here, I think the vast majority of us are 5th or 6th level, somewhere in there. And continuing to move forward, be aware that I don't think there's ever a point when you will stop being presented with new challenges of understanding, of behavior. Because this life is just a stepping stone. But it's better for us to be stepping on the stones in the living water, even at risk of being splashed or sometimes slipping off. God welcomes us even when we slip off and then we regain our footing. Better that than hanging on tight to what you believe now and insisting there's nothing more. Which leads me back to the article, the interview with the woman who had left the evangelical church. She said the evangelical church rests on fear of the unknown. They rest on fear that something bad is going to happen to you if you don't do exactly what they say. God trusts us to find our own way. He will assist us. He does assist us if you ask. I knew someone who once, in the middle of a church service, suddenly found himself in the eyes of an eagle, or looking through the eyes of an eagle as it flew over the city. He could see the rooftops. And he knew this was something God had given him, and he said, God, I don't want any part of it. And it went away. And he doesn't regret it, or didn't then. He walked away from the challenge of a new understanding to stay where he was comfortable. None of us has to choose that. Many people do choose that. And we can give them the freedom to do that as long as it doesn't intersect with our well-being. So how do we handle the challenge of something new? Robert Frost has a great line for that. And this is where I'll close. The best way out is always through. One more time. The best way out, or I'll say the best way up, is always through the fear and moving toward certainty. Thank you for helping us to grow with the messages given today and with the information shared today. We thank you, God, for watching us, guiding us as we depart from here, and helping us to return again soon so that we can rejoin this community and continue to grow together. We give you full thanks for the good in our lives. We thank you for the divine direction that you give each of us. And we thank you for healing us when our bodies are unhappy. For all the good we have, we acknowledge you with gratitude, dear God. We say thank you, thank you, thank you, and amen.